Snow whirls like ash around the broken slope of Aemon Hen, and the horn of Gondor does not fall silent. It blares again, raw and ragged, while black-feathered arrows hiss past Boromir's face and bite the trees around him. Blood slicks his mail, his breath burns in his chest, and still he stands over the fallen hobbits, sword arm shaking, eyes fixed on the next Uruk charging through the ruin of the woods. The world narrows to steel and pain, and the terrible choice he has not yet made, as far away, unseen, a small figure in a grey cloak hesitates on the riverbank and looks back. If you enjoy these deep dives into alternate timelines of Middle-earth, consider subscribing and leaving a like, so more lore fans find them. Tell me in the comments which realm you would stand for in this War of the Ring, and where in the world you are watching from. Boromir's horn echoes off the slopes, a desperate, defiant note that rolls over the water and into the trees where Aragorn runs, heart pounding. The ranger hears that call, hears its persistence, and something in him tightens. He has heard dying horns before. This does not sound like a man already falling. Aragorn crashes through brush and bracken, Andúril bright in his hand, the air thick with the stink of Uruk-hai and the iron taste of fear. He bursts into a small clearing and finds chaos. Boromir stands, legs braced, back to a tree. 3 arrows jut from his shield, 1 from his thigh, another from the mail at his side, but none yet deep in his chest. Around him lie a score of dead Uruks, hacked and hewn, black blood steaming in the cold air. Merry and Pippin are at his feet, dazed, trying to rise, their small swords in their hands. Beyond them, a knot of Uruk-hai, taller and broader than the rest, push forward under a banner marked with the white hand. At their head is one with a white handprint on his face and a cruel, curved blade. Aragorn does not know his name. He only knows that this one is dangerous. Boromir draws breath for another blast, but his arm trembles. The horn slips, and in that moment the leader raises his bow, arrow already nocked, eyes fixed on Boromir's heart. Aragorn does not shout. He moves. Andúril sings through the air. The arrow flies, but the ranger's blade strikes the bow aside, and the shaft veers, grazing Boromir's shoulder instead of his chest. The horn of Gondor falls to the ground, cracked but not broken. The Uruk chieftain snarls, surprised, as Aragorn slams into him. Steel clashes on steel. The others surge forward, but Boromir roars and steps out, planting himself between the hobbits and the oncoming tide. "Come then, carrion of Isengard," he growls, voice hoarse. "You will not have them." There is no time for apology, no space for shame. The moment of weakness by the river, the grasping at Frodo's neck, the horror in the hobbit's eyes, all of that is a weight in Boromir's chest, heavier than any arrow. But now there is only the fight. Merry and Pippin, faces pale, glance at one another. They see the blood, the arrows, the way Boromir sways. They see Aragorn locked with the great Uruk. The hobbits tighten their grip on their swords. "Stay behind me," Boromir barks, not looking back. They do not. Merry darts to one side, Pippin to the other, hacking at legs, stabbing at bellies where the armor gaps. They are clumsy, small and slow compared to the Uruks, but they are unexpected. One Uruk falls with a howl, another stumbles, and for a moment the line breaks. Aragorn drives his shoulder into the chieftain, forcing him back against a tree. Their faces are inches apart, sweat and breath mingling. The Uruk snarls words in the black speech, but Aragorn needs no translation to understand hatred. He twists, drives Anduril up under the mail, and feels the life go out of the creature in a shudder. The chieftain's blade falls. Aragorn wrenches his sword free and turns. The clearing is a storm of motion. Boromir hews down another foe, but an Uruk's spear punches into his side. He grunts, staggers, then slams his shield into the attacker, crushing bone. Merry cries out as a club catches him across the back. Pippin vanishes beneath a tangle of legs. Aragorn charges, voice cutting through the din. "Gondor!" Boromir hears that word like fire in his veins. He straightens, blood pouring down his leg, and laughs, a wild, exultant sound. "For Gondor," he answers. Steel and will meet in the ruined woods. Between them, Aragorn and Boromir carve a path of death. The Uruks fall back, suddenly leaderless, snarling and uncertain. One seizes Pippin around the waist, and another grabs Merry, dragging them away. Their small voices rise in panic. "Aragorn! Boromir!" For a heartbeat, Boromir lunges after them, but his wounded leg buckles. He drops to one knee, fingers digging into the earth. Aragorn, panting, sees the choice before him. The hobbits dragged into the shadows, or Boromir, bleeding, barely holding himself upright. He hesitates, just long enough. The remaining Uruks, under some shouted command in their harsh tongue, retreat with their captives, vanishing into the trees with brutal efficiency. Their heavy feet drum the ground, then fade. Silence falls, broken only by the harsh breathing of the two men and the groans of the wounded. Boromir tries to rise and fails. His sword clatters from his hand. Aragorn is at his side in 2 strides, catching him under the arm, easing him down against the bole of a tree. His hands move quickly, assessing wounds, fingers slick with blood. "You are not dying here," Aragorn says, and there is iron in his voice. Boromir's lips twist in a bitter smile. "You sound very certain, son of Arathorn." Aragorn meets his gaze, and in that look there is more than command. There is memory of laughter in Lorien, of shared watchfires, of a man who spoke of white towers and the sound of the sea. "I am," Aragorn replies, "for Minas Tirith still needs you." Boromir's breath catches at the name of his city. His eyes close briefly, and in that darkness he sees white walls, banners snapping in the wind, the proud face of his father, the earnest gaze of his younger brother. He sees again Frodo's terrified eyes as Boromir's hands closed on him. Guilt surges up, choking. "I failed," he whispers, the words barely audible. "I tried to take it. I drove him away. The ring-bearer is gone because of me." Aragorn binds a wound tight, and Boromir gasps as pain flares. The ranger does not look away. "You stumbled," Aragorn says. "You were tempted. So were we all. But you stand now. That is what matters." He glances into the trees where the Uruks vanished with Merry and Pippin. His jaw clenches. "The company is broken," Boromir murmurs. "Perhaps," Aragorn answers, "but the war is not yet lost." He presses a hand over Boromir's, steadying it on the torn horn of Gondor. "If you live," Aragorn says quietly, "you can yet defend what you love. You can yet face your father and your brother." The name hangs unspoken between them, but Boromir hears it. Faramir. Far across the river, another choice is being made. On the slopes above the western shore, Frodo Baggins stands alone, the ring heavy in his palm. Samwise Gamgee stumbles toward him, lungs burning, eyes stinging with tears and river spray. Behind them, the cries of battle are faint, like memory. Frodo's fingers close around the ring. Its whisper presses against his mind, promising safety, power, an end to this endless terror. He sees Boromir's face again, twisted with need, hears his voice pleading for the strength to save his people. He also sees, in some deep place, a white city burning. Sam reaches him and seizes his arm. "Mr. Frodo," he pants, "you cannot go alone." Frodo looks at him, eyes wide and haunted. "I must, Sam. The others... Boromir... He cannot finish. Sam shakes his head, stubborn. "Then I am coming with you. There is no use arguing." Frodo opens his mouth to protest, but something breaks in him instead. The terror, the weight, the loneliness. He nods once. "Together then," he whispers. They turn toward the Emin Muil, unaware that the sound of Boromir's horn still echoes faintly behind them, and that on the eastern shore of the great river a path is closing and another is opening. On Amon Hen, Legolas and Gimli arrive in time to see the last of the Uruks vanish with their captives. Aragorn is already on his feet, Boromir propped against the tree, pale but conscious. Legolas's keen eyes take in the scene in a heartbeat. The blood, the broken horn, the missing hobbits. "Where are Frodo and Sam?" he asks. "Gone," Aragorn answers, voice tight. "To Mordor, I think. Alone, or not quite. There is no time to follow. The Uruks have taken Merry and Pippin." Gimli's hands clench on the haft of his axe. "Then we go after them," he growls. "We cannot leave them to the filth of Isengard." Aragorn shakes his head slowly. "We cannot all go. Boromir is wounded. He will not outrun Uruk-hai, and Minas Tirith must be warned. Saruman moves against Rohan, and Sauron's gaze will turn to Gondor soon enough. If Boromir lives, he must return to his city." Boromir stirs, anger and pride flaring. "I am not broken," he says through gritted teeth. "Give me a horse, and I will ride. I will not cower while others fight." "You will not cower," Aragorn replies. "You will lead." He kneels again, meeting Boromir's gaze head-on. "You spoke often of your city," Aragorn says, "of its need, of your father's will. There will soon be war on two fronts. Rohan will burn if no aid comes. Gondor will stand alone if no hand reaches out. If you return, you can be that hand." Legolas glances from one to the other, understanding dawning. "You would send him south," the elf says, "while we pursue the Uruks west." Aragorn nods. "The fellowship is broken," he says, "but our purpose is not. Frodo and Sam go east. We three will go after Merry and Pippin. Boromir must ride to Minas Tirith with all speed to prepare the White City for what comes." Gimli snorts. "Alone? Wounded?" Boromir's jaw tightens. "I am not so easily slain," he says, "and I will not ride alone. There are horses in the lands below, men of the south perhaps, or the scattered folk of Gondor's borders. I will reach my city." He looks to Aragorn, and for the first time there is something like humility in his eyes. "If you trust me," Boromir says quietly, "after what I have done." Aragorn holds his gaze. "I do," he replies, and the words are a gift and a burden. Boromir looks away, eyes hot. "Then I will not fail you," he says. But he means more than Aragorn. He means Frodo, whom he drove away. He means Faramir, whom he overshadowed. He means a stern, proud man in a high tower who sent his son north with a command and a hope twisted by fear. The four of them move quickly after that. Legolas and Gimli scour the battlefield for signs of the hobbits, for tracks of the Uruks. Aragorn helps Boromir to his feet, binds his wounds more securely, and retrieves his shield and sword. The horn of Gondor lies in two pieces in the trampled grass. Boromir picks them up with shaking hands. "It is broken," he says softly. Aragorn studies the shattered horn. "Then let it be mended in Minas Tirith," he answers. "Let it sound again when the city's need is greatest." Boromir closes his fingers around the splintered ivory. "Or let it hang in the Hall of the Stewards," he murmurs, as a reminder. He does not say of what. He does not need to. They part at the foot of the hill, where the trees thin and the land slopes down toward the river and the wider world. The air smells of damp earth and distant water. Clouds mass in the west, heavy and low. Legolas clasps Boromir's forearm in the warrior's grip. "Do not die before we meet again, son of Gondor," the elf says, a flicker of a smile at the corner of his mouth. "I will try to obey," Boromir replies. Gimli grunts, eyes narrowed. "Tell your people that a dwarf of the Lonely Mountain fought beside you," he says, "and that if they sneer at that, I will come knock on their gates." Boromir manages a rough chuckle. "I will tell them," he says. Then Aragorn stands before him, and for a moment the two men only look at each other. "You know the paths," Aragorn says at last. "Follow the river south until it bends. There you will find the lands of Gondor's northern fiefs. Seek out the Dunedain of the Marches. They will aid you." Boromir nods. "And you," he says, "you go into shadow for the sake of the Shire. If you live, come to Minas Tirith. I would see you there, in the White Tower." Aragorn's eyes darken, as if some private dread stirs. "If I come," he answers, "I will not come as a captain only." Boromir understands. He thinks of the broken sword reforged, of the name whispered in Elrond's house, Isildur's heir. "Then come as you are meant to be," Boromir says. "We will see if Gondor remembers her kings." They part without embrace, as warriors do, with a final nod. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli turn west, already breaking into a run, their figures soon swallowed by the trees. Boromir watches them go, then turns south, alone, limping at first, then forcing his stride to lengthen. Each step is pain. Each breath is a reminder that he lives when he was meant to die. By nightfall, the land has changed. The great woods of the north thin to scattered copses and rolling fields. The sky is a low grey lid. Boromir's wounds throb, his bandages soaked through. He tastes copper and ash. He walks until his legs give way, then crawls to a hollow beneath a thorn bush and falls into an uneasy sleep, clutching the broken horn. In his dreams, the White City burns. In Minas Tirith, Denethor, son of Ecthelion, sits in the high hall of the Tower of Ecthelion, listening to the wind batter the windows. Before him, on a black cloth, lies a long shard of white horn, cloven in two. It had come 3 days past, borne by a rider from the north, found in the reeds of the great river. The horn of Gondor, broken. Denethor's eyes, dark and weary, linger on it. His fingers, long and pale, drum the arm of his chair. He has not wept. He has not raged. He has only grown colder. Faramir stands at the foot of the dais, hands clenched behind his back. His face is drawn, his eyes red-rimmed. The horn had been his brother's, a symbol of their house and their bond. To see it sundered is to feel the world crack. The messenger said there were orc signs on the riverbank, Faramir says quietly. But no body. Denethor's gaze flicks to him. "Do you cling to that?" the steward asks. "To the hope that your brother yet lives?" Faramir swallows. "I do not know," he admits. "Boromir is strong, hard to kill." Denethor's mouth tightens. "He was the best of us," he says. "The might of Gondor made flesh. If he has fallen, then much has fallen with him." He leans forward, eyes suddenly sharp. And yet, you speak of his strength. You would have me hold back my grief, my wrath, because perhaps he crawls bleeding on some foreign shore, with no sword in his hand and no standard at his back. Faramir flinches. I would have you remember that he has not yet been seen dead, he says, voice steady with effort. And that despair is the enemy's first victory. Denethor's lip curls. You speak to me of despair, he says. You who let the lost city of Osgiliath fall again under the shadow. You who dream of broken swords and wandering kings, while real men bleed for real walls. Faramir's jaw clenches. He says nothing. Denethor rises, the black robe of the steward whispering against the stone. The days grow darker, he says. Mordor stirs. The eye is upon us, and now, perhaps, my eldest is taken from me. If he yet lives, he will come. He will crawl if he must. He knows his duty. He steps down from the dais, coming close enough that Faramir can see the fine lines etched around his father's eyes, the fatigue that no sleep can banish. If he does not, Denethor continues, then you will go in his stead, Faramir. You will do what you can, as you always have, but do not ask me to place the hope of Gondor upon your shoulders. You are not your brother. The words are a knife Faramir has felt before. They still cut. I know, Faramir says softly. He bows his head, not in submission, but in acceptance of a long-standing wound. Outside, the wind howls around the tower. Somewhere in the deep of the city, a child cries and is hushed. The white tree stands, dead and leafless, its branches scratching the sky like bones. Far to the north, under a sky the same color as stone, Boromir wakes to the sound of hoofbeats. He is on his feet before he is fully aware, hand on his sword, visions swimming. 3 riders crest a low rise, cloaks snapping. Their horses are rangy, their gear worn, but they sit their saddles with the ease of long habit. Boromir's eyes narrow. Who goes? He calls, voice rough. The riders rein in. One, dark-haired with a streak of silver at his temple, studies Boromir with open wariness. We might ask the same, the man says. These are dangerous lands. Orcs abroad, and worse. Few travel alone. Boromir straightens, ignoring the pull of his wounds. I am Boromir, son of Denethor, steward of Gondor, he says. I travel south to Minas Tirith. If you are true men of the West, you will aid me. The 3 exchange glances. The leader dismounts, moving with a soldier's economy. Boromir, he repeats, stepping closer. The Captain General. Boromir's eyes flick to the man's gear, the cut of his mail, the shape of his sword, the worn but still visible device on his shield. A white tree, much faded. You have the look of my people, Boromir says. From what company do you ride? The man drops to one knee, fist to chest. Damrod, of the Rangers of Ithilien, my lord, he says. We were sent north to watch the crossings. We found only your horn, broken, and orc tracks in the reeds. We thought you slain. Boromir glances at the bundle at the man's saddle. Damrod follows his gaze, then hastily unties it. The 2 halves of the Horn of Gondor slide to the ground with a dull thud. Boromir stares at them for a long moment. Rumor of my death has reached Minas Tirith then, he says slowly. Damrod nods. Aye, my lord. The steward, your father, he has taken it ill. Something twists in Boromir's chest, sharper than any arrow. He had imagined his father's anger at his failure, not his grief at his death. He had imagined Faramir's sorrow, but not the weight of it bearing down without counterbalance. How far to the city? Boromir asks. 3 days' hard ride, if the road is clear, Damrod replies. Less for men unwounded. More perhaps for you, my lord." Boromir smiles grimly. "Then we will ride hard," he says. "I will not have my father sit in mourning longer than he must, and there is much he must hear." He looks south, where the faint smudge of mountains marks the horizon. "The ring has gone to Mordor," he says quietly, and war follows close behind. The rangers stiffen. "Are you certain?" Damrod asks. "I am," Boromir answers. "I have seen it with my own eyes. I have felt its weight." His hand goes unconsciously to his breast, where Frodo's small form had once struggled under his grasp. "It will seek the Dark Lord," Boromir continues, "and he will seek it. Gondor stands in the path. We have little time." Damrod bows his head. "Then let us waste none," he says. They help Boromir into a saddle. The pain is blinding at first, but he grits his teeth and forces his body to obey. The world narrows again to the rhythm of hoofbeats, to the throb of wounds, to the steady southward pull of duty and dread. On the plains of Rohan, a different company rides. Eomer, son of Eomund, leads his Eorid across the grasslands, the wind in their hair, the sun low and red at their backs. They have just left behind a smoking pile of corpses, a host of Uruk-hai, slain to the last, with no living prisoners. They did not find the hobbits. As they ride, 3 small figures move toward them on foot, weary but unbowed. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli will soon meet the Horse Lords, and the fate of Rohan will bend around that meeting, much as in the tale that might have been. But there is a difference now, subtle and deep. In this timeline, when Aragorn speaks of Boromir, he does not speak of a man who fell under a dozen arrows, redeemed in death. He speaks of a man who still rides, wounded, but alive, toward his city. He goes to Minas Tirith, Aragorn will say to Eomer by the light of a campfire, to warn your ally of the storm that breaks upon you both. Eomer will frown, considering. The politics of Gondor and Rohan are a tangled web of oaths and old grievances. But the name of Boromir carries weight even here. If Boromir, son of Denethor, rides, Eomer will say slowly, then perhaps the White City is not so blind as I feared. He will still give them horses. They will still ride to Edoras, to Theoden in his darkened hall, to the unmasking of Grima Wormtongue and the first stirrings of hope in the Golden Hall. Yet in the back of Aragorn's mind, as he watches Theoden's bent back straighten and the light return to the king's eyes, there will be another image, a white city on 7 levels, a stern man in black and silver, and Boromir standing between them, wounded and unbowed. He wonders which is the more difficult task, to free a king from another's whisper or a father from his own despair. On the second day of hard riding, the white walls of Minas Tirith rise before Boromir like a dream remembered. The city of the kings stands against the flank of Mindolluin, its 7 circles climbing the mountainside, its towers pale in the morning light. The Pelennor fields stretch before it, a wide plain dotted with farms and watchtowers, bounded by the great wall of the Ramas Echor. Smoke rises from chimneys. Bells toll faintly. From this distance, it looks peaceful. Boromir knows better. At the causeway forts, the guards see the banner of the steward on Damrod's spear, and the figure slumped in the saddle behind him. Trumpets sound. The gates of the Ramas swing open. As they pass through, a murmur ripples among the soldiers on the walls. Boromir. He lives. By the Valar, look at him. Boromir hears it all, but his gaze is fixed ahead on the white road that leads to the city gate. His wounds ache, his head swims, but a fierce, stubborn pride keeps his back straight. He will not crawl. The great gates of Minas Tirith open to receive him. The first circle is a crush of people and sound, merchants shouting, children running, the clatter of carts. The news runs ahead of him like fire. Boromir has returned. The Captain General. He is wounded. Faces turn, eyes wide. Some reach out to touch his stirrup as he passes. Old men straighten, young ones stare with hungry admiration. For years, Boromir has been the living symbol of Gondor's defiance, the man who rode to Osgiliath when others quailed, who held the line when the Black Captain himself came forth. To see him now, pale and blood-stained, is to feel the world tilt. He climbs through the circles, each gate opening before him. The city grows quieter as he ascends, the press of people thinning, the buildings growing grander. By the time he reaches the sixth circle, he is shaking with effort. Damrod moves to help him down, but Boromir waves him off. "I walk," he says through gritted teeth. The long stair to the citadel looms ahead. Boromir takes the first step. His leg screams, the wound tearing anew. He tastes blood in his mouth and does not know if it is fresh. Step by step, he climbs. At the top, before the court of the fountain, the guards of the citadel stand in their black and silver, helms gleaming. The white tree rises behind them, dead and leafless. The tower of Ecthelion pierces the sky. The doors of the Hall of the Kings swing open. Denethor stands within, on the dais beneath the empty throne, his face carved from stone. Faramir is at his side, eyes fixed on the doorway. Boromir crosses the hall, each footfall echoing. The great tapestries of Gondor's history watch him pass. Elendil's landing, the founding of the city, battles long forgotten by all but the lawmasters. He stops at the foot of the dais and drops to one knee. The world tilts dangerously. He braces himself with one hand on the cool stone. "Father," he says, voice barely more than a whisper. For a heartbeat, no one moves. Then Denethor descends the steps, the black mantle of the steward trailing behind him. He stops before his son and reaches out, fingers hovering over Boromir's bowed head as if afraid to touch. "Boromir," Denethor says. The word is a breath, a prayer, a curse. Boromir lifts his head, meeting his father's eyes. "I bring grave tidings," he says, "and a heavier burden than my wounds." Denethor's gaze flicks over the bandages, the blood, the exhaustion in his son's face. His jaw tightens. "You live," he says. "That is burden enough for now." He turns sharp. "Faramir, see that your brother's wounds are tended. He will speak when he can stand without swaying." Faramir moves forward, relief and worry warring in his eyes. "Boromir," he says softly. Boromir manages a tired smile. "Little brother," he replies. Faramir's hands are gentle as he helps Boromir to his feet, guiding him toward the side chamber where the healers wait. As they pass, the broken horn of Gondor catches Boromir's eye, lying on its black cloth. He stops, swaying. "Take it," he says. Faramir hesitates. "Are you certain?" he asks. Boromir nods. "It is mine," he says. "And Gondor's. It will sound again." He looks back at his father. "If you will it," he adds. Denethor's expression is unreadable. "Rest," the steward says. "Then we will speak of will and of war and of what you have seen in the north." Boromir allows himself to be led away. Behind him, in the great hall, Denethor stands alone for a moment, eyes on the place where his son knelt. Then he turns and ascends to the high chamber where the Palantir waits, veiled and heavy with unseen weight. He has seen much in its depths of late. Black sails, burning cities, a great eye wreathed in flame. Now, perhaps, he will see something else. A small figure in a grey cloak climbing dark, stairs in a land of ash. In Ithilien, an ambush is being prepared. Faramir moves through the green shadows like a ghost, his rangers at his heels. The air here is different from the stone and smoke of Minas Tirith. It smells of damp earth, of growing things, of hidden water. He had taken only a short time with Boromir after the healers did their work. There was too much to do. Denethor, with his son returned, had become fiercer, not calmer. Orders had flown like arrows. "Hold Ithilien," the steward had said. "Watch the road from the Blackland. We will not be taken unawares." He had also said other things, quieter when they were alone in the high chamber. "The ring," Denethor had murmured, eyes bright with a dangerous light. "You are certain, Boromir?" Boromir had nodded, pale in the candlelight. "I saw it," he had said. "I touched it. It is real. It is in the hands of a hobbit of the Shire, Frodo Baggins. He goes to Mordor with one companion. They mean to destroy it." Denethor had laughed then, a harsh, disbelieving sound. "Destroy it," he had said. "The one thing that might save us, that might give Gondor the strength to withstand the storm? They would cast it into the fire?" Boromir had flinched, shame flickering across his face. "I thought as you do," he had admitted. "I tried to take it. It showed me visions of victory, of Minas Tirith unassailable. But it was wrong, twisted. There was no joy in that triumph, only shadow. I was not strong enough to bear it. None of us are." Denethor had gone very still. "You presume to judge what I might bear?" he had asked softly. Boromir had met his gaze, a son facing a father not as a child, but as a man. "I presume to judge only myself," he had said. "But I have seen what it does. It would not be our servant, father. It would be our master, and it would deliver us in the end to the enemy." Denethor had turned away, pacing to the narrow window that overlooked the Pelennor. "The enemy will have it," he had said. "If it goes into his land, he will find it. You have told me yourself that the halfling walks into his very grasp. Is that better than placing it in the hands of those who would use it for good?" Boromir had closed his eyes briefly, hearing again Frodo's voice on Amon Hen. "You will try to take the ring," the hobbit had said, tears in his eyes. "You are all wise and great, and you will try." Boromir had opened his eyes and spoken with a steadiness he did not entirely feel. "If we take it, we will fall," he had said. "Perhaps not at once. Perhaps we would win great victories first. But in the end, father, it would master us. It is not meant for men." Denethor had stared at him, something like betrayal in his gaze. "You sound like Mithrandir," he had said, spitting the name like a curse. "Or like Faramir, with his dreams and his scruples. Have you come back from the north a stranger, Boromir?" Boromir had taken a breath. "I have come back, having failed," he had said. "I could not bring you the weapon you desired. I could not keep the company together. I could not protect the ring-bearer from myself. But I have also come back having seen what lies on the other side of that failure. There is another road than the one you would take." Denethor had turned back to the window. "Go to the healers," he had said at last. "Then to your rest. We will speak again when I have looked further into this matter." Boromir had left, knowing exactly what that meant. Now Faramir moves under the trees of Ithilien, unaware of the full weight of that conversation, but feeling its echo in his father's orders. "Watch for halflings," Denethor had said, almost as an afterthought. "The North sends strange messengers these days. Bring any you find to me, unharmed if possible." Faramir had raised an eyebrow. "Halflings," he had repeated. Denethor had given him a long, measuring look. "Trust me in this," he had said. "There is more at play than you know. Your brother has told me enough." Faramir had nodded, but unease had coiled in his gut. Now, as he watches the Haradrim column wind up the road, he pushes those thoughts aside. There is work to do. War, not riddles. The ambush unfolds much as it did in another telling. Arrows hiss from the trees. Southron men fall, their great oliphants trumpeting in panic. The rangers strike like shadows, then vanish. In the aftermath, among the fallen, Faramir's men find two small figures in grey cloaks, bound and blindfolded. "Halflings," Damrod breathes. Faramir steps forward, heart pounding. He remembers Boromir's face when he spoke of the ring, of the small, brave creature who bore it. He remembers his father's eyes when he said the word halfling. He kneels, gently tugging away the blindfolds. Frodo blinks in the dappled light, confusion and fear in his eyes. Sam squints up at Faramir, then scowls. "If you are going to kill us," the gardener says, "you might at least tell us your names." Faramir cannot help a small, startled huff of laughter. "I am Faramir, son of Denethor, steward of Gondor," he says. "And I do not kill unarmed guests, even when they appear on the road from the Black Land." Frodo's eyes widen at the name. "Faramir," he repeats, "Boromir's brother." The air tightens around them. The rangers shift, listening. "You know my brother?" Faramir asks, voice suddenly very careful. Frodo swallows. "He was with us," the hobbit says. "In the north, in the Fellowship. He hesitates, pain flickering across his face. "He tried to take the ring," Frodo says at last, quietly. "But he repented. He died defending Merry and Pippin from the Uruk-hai." Sam makes a small, strangled sound. "Or so we thought," Frodo adds, frowning. "Aragorn said he fell, but if he lives..." Faramir's mind reels. "He does live," he says slowly. "He returned to Minas Tirith but days ago, wounded but alive. He told our father of you, of the ring." Frodo goes very still. "He told him?" the hobbit whispers. Faramir nods. "Denethor knows that the One Ring has passed through these lands," he says. "He knows that you bear it." Sam's hand flies to Frodo's shoulder. "Then we are done for," he mutters. "If he is anything like Boromir was, we will be locked up in some tower and squeezed until we give it over." Faramir's jaw tightens. "My brother is not the man he was," he says. "Nor am I the man my father would have me be." He rises, looking down at the hobbits. "You are fortunate that it was I who found you," he says. "For I have heard enough to know that the ring is not a gift for men. I will not take it from you, Frodo, son of Drogo, but I cannot pretend it does not exist. Not now." Frodo meets his gaze, searching. "What will you do?" he asks. Faramir looks east, where the dark line of the Ephel-Duath looms. "What I have always done," he says quietly. "My duty, as I see it. I will help you as I can, and I will not betray you, but I must also send word to my father. He will not be pleased." He thinks of Boromir, of the new gravity in his brother's eyes, of the way he had spoken of the ring, not with desire, but with dread. "Perhaps," Faramir says slowly, "it is time my father heard another voice than his own in this matter. He gives orders, brisk and efficient. The hobbits are to be fed, their bonds cut. A watch is to be set, not as jailers, but as protectors. A swift rider is to be dispatched to Minas Tirith with a sealed message. In the high chamber of the White Tower, Denethor will soon break that seal and read his younger son's careful words. He will learn that the ring-bearer is in Ithilien, that Faramir has chosen not to seize the ring, that he intends to aid the hobbits on their road to Tirith Ungol. Denethor's hands will shake as he reads, not with age, but with fury. "Fool," he will hiss. "Soft-hearted fool. Between the two of them, they will throw away the one hope we have." He will turn then to where Boromir stands by the window, face still pale but his bearing once more that of the Captain General. "You see?" Denethor will say. "You see what comes of pity and scruple? Your brother would let the ring pass into the very jaws of the enemy, trusting to chance and the schemes of a wizard who has never loved this city as we do." Boromir will not answer at once. He will be looking east toward the mountains that hide Mordor, where somewhere, small and afraid and stubborn, Frodo and Sam climb in the dark. He remembers his own hands on Frodo's shoulders, the horror of that moment, the way the ring had burned his mind with visions of glory. He remembers too the feel of Aragorn's hand on his arm, steadying, forgiving. At last he will speak. "Faramir is not weak," Boromir will say. "He is wise, wiser than I was when I stood where he stands." Denethor will round on him. "You would side with him," the steward demands. "You who have seen the ring, who have felt its power, you would throw it away." Boromir will hold his father's gaze. "I would," he says, "because I have also seen what it does to the hearts of men. It would devour us, father. It would devour you." There will be a silence then, deep and dangerous. "You speak treason," Denethor says at last, very quietly. "I speak truth," Boromir replies. The air between them will crackle like a drawn bow. This is the fulcrum upon which this new timeline balances. In one path, Denethor's pride and despair deepen into madness, unchecked, leading him to the pyre and the madness of fire. In another, the presence of his elder son, changed by failure and grace, becomes a counterweight. But even Boromir is only a man, and the eye in the east is very, very strong. The war rolls forward. In Rohan, Theoden rides from the Golden Hall, his sword once more bright in his hand. At Helm's Deep, men and elves and dwarves stand against the storm of Isengard. The walls shake under the blows of Saruman's engines. The deeping Coombe echoes with the cries of the dying. Aragorn stands on the battlements, rain streaming down his face, and thinks of Boromir in Minas Tirith. "Hold," he mutters, as if the word could cross leagues. "Hold a little longer." He does not know that at that very moment Boromir is standing in the court of the fountain, looking up at the dead white tree, feeling the same pressure of time. He has argued with his father until his voice is hoarse. He has stood beside him in the council chamber, hearing the reports from the borders, orc incursions in Ithilien, strange movements along the Black Land, rumors of a great host mustering. He has watched Denethor grow more withdrawn, more brittle. The steward spends long hours alone in the high chamber, his eyes red-rimmed, his hands shaking when he thinks no one sees. Boromir suspects what he does there. He has heard the whispers of the Palantir, the seeing stone that his father guards jealously. He has tried to reach him. "Father," Boromir has said more than once, "you cannot bear this alone. Let others share the burden. Let Mithrandir advise you. Let Aragorn." Denethor has cut him off every time with a flash of anger. "I will not yield this city to a ragged ranger," he has said, "nor to a wizard who meddles in affairs he does not understand. This is our charge, Boromir, ours, the House of Hurin, not the House of Isildur." Boromir has not spoken Aragorn's name again, but he has not stopped thinking of him. When Gandalf and Pippin finally arrive in Minas Tirith, borne on Shadowfax's swift back after the ruin of Isengard and the Palantir's fateful use in Orthanc, they find a city on the edge of a knife. The mood in the streets is tense, expectant. The people know war is coming. They also know that their Captain General has returned from the north with strange tales and a new gravity in his gaze. Pippin's heart lurches when he sees Boromir again, standing on the wall of the first circle, watching the road from the Pelennor. "Boromir!" the hobbit cries, scrambling down from Shadowfax. Boromir turns, surprise and something like joy flashing across his face. "Pippin," he says, dropping to one knee to meet the hobbit's gaze, "you are alive." Pippin laughs, half in delight, half in disbelief. "So are you," he says. "You were meant to be dead, you know. We all thought—" He stops, suddenly aware of Gandalf's sharp gaze and the watching soldiers. Boromir's smile fades. "Many things were meant to be," he says quietly. "And yet here we stand." He rises, turning to Gandalf. "Mithrandir," he says, inclining his head. "You come at last." Gandalf's eyes, keen and ancient, study Boromir's face. "You have been through fire," the wizard says, "and not only in the north." Boromir's mouth quirks. "I have learned some hard lessons," he says. "Perhaps too late, but not, I hope, entirely in vain." Gandalf's gaze flicks to the tower. "Denethor?" he asks. Boromir's expression tightens. "Harder still," he says. He listens, but he does not hear. He sees, but not clearly. The stone has shown him much, and twisted it to the enemy's purpose. Gandalf's jaw clenches. "So he has looked," the wizard mutters. "Fool of a steward." Boromir's hand closes briefly on the parapet. "He is still my father," he says. "I will not abandon him, but I may not be able to save him from himself." He looks east, where a darkness is growing on the horizon, like a bruise spreading across the sky. "Nor," he adds, "may I be able to save this city." Gandalf lays a hand on his arm. "You are not alone in this," the wizard says. "Remember that." Pippin, watching them, feels very small and very far from the green hills of the Shire. Yet he also feels something else, a strange, fierce pride. He thinks of Merry, somewhere with the Rohirrim, and of Frodo and Sam, somewhere in the dark. He thinks of Boromir, who had once terrified him, now standing between his city and the storm. "I will help," Pippin blurts. Boromir looks down at him, startled. "You are one small hobbit," he says gently. "This is not your war to fight." Pippin's chin juts. "It is now," he says. "You saved me once. I ran away and got captured anyway. I am not running this time. I will stand with you." Boromir studies him for a long moment, then nods. "Very well," he says. "Then let the guard of the citadel find room for one more small but stubborn recruit." He smiles, and for a moment, despite the shadow on the horizon, the weight on his shoulders, he looks younger, like the man he was before the ring. The days that follow are a blur of preparation and dread. In Rohan, the beacons flare to life, one after another, fire leaping from peak to peak. Aragorn, watching from the Golden Hall, feels his heart leap with them. "Gondor calls for aid," he says. Theoden, who in one world might have hesitated, looks at him, then at the flames on the mountains. "And Rohan will answer," the king says. They ride then, the Rohirrim gathering like a storm, their horns echoing across the plains. Merry rides with them, heart in his throat, clutching the pommel of his saddle. He thinks of Pippin in Minas Tirith and of the promise they made to see each other again. In Gondor, Boromir stands on the walls as the first dark shapes appear on the eastern horizon. The army of Mordor rolls forward like a black tide. Orcs and Easterlings, Southrons with their great beasts, siege towers and engines of war. The Nazgul wheel overhead, their screeches tearing at the hearts of men. The first assault on the Pelennor unfolds with brutal inevitability. The outer walls shake under the blows of Grond, the great battering ram. Flames lick at the gates. Arrows fall like rain. Boromir is everywhere. He rides along the line, shouting orders, rallying men who would otherwise break. He leads sorties against the siege engines, his banner a bright point in the chaos. He fights on the walls, sword flashing, shield dented and blackened. He is not the man he was at Osgiliath. There is a new caution in him, a sense of restraint. He does not throw his life away in reckless charges. He chooses his battles. Yet he is still Boromir. He cannot help but be at the forefront where the danger is greatest. Pippin sees him there, from his post in the Citadel Guard. The hobbit's heart swells with a strange, painful mix of fear and admiration. "Do not die," Pippin whispers, gripping the hilt of his small sword. "Not yet. Not like this." In the high chamber, Denethor watches the battle through the palantir and through the window, his mind pulled between visions of burning ships and black sails, of a great eye searching, and the very real sight of his son on the field. He sees, too, something else. For in this timeline, when the corsairs of Umbar sail up the Anduin, they do not find a city unprepared. Boromir, with the memory of Elrond's counsel and Aragorn's hint of another path, has sent word to the southern fiefs earlier than he would have otherwise. He has not waited for the last moment. "Send riders to Dol Amroth," he had said, "to Pelagir, to Lamedon, to Lebanon. Tell them the Captain General bids them stand ready at the river. The enemy will not come only by land." Denethor had scoffed at first. "You would strip the city of its strength," he had said, "to guard against a threat that may not come?" Boromir had held his ground. "If it does not come, then we lose nothing," he had said. "If it does, and we are unprepared, we lose everything." In the end, Denethor had grudgingly agreed. The southern lords had mustered. Galleys had been readied. Men had watched the river with wary eyes. So when Aragorn comes down the Anduin with the dead behind him, he does not find Pelagir overrun. He finds it embattled, but still holding. The black ships of Umbar are locked in combat with Gondorian vessels, arrows and fire flying between them. Men shout and die on slick decks. The banner of Dol Amroth flutters defiantly over one ship, its swan prow battered but unbroken. Aragorn, standing in the prow of a captured corsair ship, sees this and feels a fierce surge of hope. "Gondor does not sleep," Legolas murmurs beside him. "No," Aragorn says. "Boromir has done his work well." They join the battle. The dead sweep over the corsair ships, their cold hands dragging men screaming into the shadows. The tide turns quickly. The black sails fall one by one. When the last corsair is taken, a tall man in blue and silver steps forward on the deck of the Dol Amroth flagship, helm under his arm, dark hair blowing in the river wind. "Who comes?" he calls, sword in hand. Aragorn steps forward, Andúril at his side, the banner of Elendil unfurling behind him. "I am Aragorn, son of Arathorn," he says, "heir of Isildur, and I come to claim what was broken." Prince Imrahil of Dol Amroth studies him for a long moment, then drops to one knee. "Then Gondor is not yet lost," Imrahil says. They sail for Minas Tirith together, black sails now bearing a different purpose. On the Pelennor, the battle reaches its darkest hour. The gates of Minas Tirith, shattered by Grond, lie in ruins. The first circle burns. Orcs swarm through the breach, only to be met by desperate men fighting in the streets. Boromir is there, sword arm numb, shield splintered, face streaked with blood and soot. He has lost track of time. The world is reduced to the next foe, the next order, the next narrow alley to hold. He hears the Nazgul before he sees them, their shrieks stabbing like knives into his skull. Men falter, some dropping their weapons, others falling to their knees. Boromir grits his teeth and looks up. The Witch King of Angmar, Lord of the Nazgul, hovers above the city, a vast shadow on a winged beast. His gaze fixes on the tower, on the White Tree, on the man who stands beneath it. He turns his mount toward the citadel. Denethor, in his high chamber, feels that gaze like a burning brand. The Palantir shows him a vision of the tower falling, of the White Tree consumed in flame, of his line ended. He staggers back, clutching his head. "They are coming," he mutters. "They are here. All is lost." He sees, too, in the stone, a ship on the river bearing black sails. He sees the banner of the king. But the stone, twisted by Sauron's will, shows him only ruin following in its wake. He sees the city burning regardless. Despair wraps around him like a cloak. In another world, this is the moment when Denethor breaks completely. When he orders a pyre built, when he drags his wounded younger son to the brink of death with him. In this world, there is a knock at the door. "Father," Boromir's voice says, muffled by the heavy wood. "Open. The city needs you." Denethor freezes. He had forgotten in that moment of all-consuming terror that his elder son still lives. That Boromir is not a memory, but a presence, a weight on the other side of the door. "Leave me," Denethor says hoarsely. "You have your duty on the walls. I have mine here." The door shudders under a heavy blow. "The walls will not stand if their steward abandons them," Boromir says, voice harsh. "Open this door, father." Denethor snarls, grief and fury boiling. "You presume much," he says. "You think because you rode north and came back with tales of elves and halflings that you know better than I, who have watched this city stand against the shadow for long years." Another blow. The wood cracks. "I know that if you burn now," Boromir says, "you will take Faramir with you." Denethor goes still. He had ordered Faramir brought to the Houses of Healing after the younger son's desperate sortie to Osgiliath and his wounding by a fell dart. He had stood over his fevered body, weeping and railing, calling him traitor and beloved in the same breath. He had, in his darkest thought, seen only one escape from the terror the Palantir showed him: fire. Now Boromir's words cut through that fog. "You would burn your own son," Boromir says, voice raw. "Our line's last hope, if I fall. You would deny him even the chance to live, to fight, to choose his own end." The door splinters. Boromir stands there, breathing hard, soot-streaked and wild-eyed, a bloody bandage visible under his torn mail. Behind him, in the corridor, Pippin and Beregond hover, eyes wide. Denethor stares at his elder son, at the living proof that not all is lost. The city will fall, Denethor says, but the conviction has gone from his voice. The enemy is too strong. I have seen it. Boromir steps into the room, kicking aside the shattered wood. Then let it fall with us on the walls, he says. Not with you on a pyre. He strides to the covered table where the Palantir sits. Denethor moves to block him, but Boromir's hand shoots out, gripping his father's wrist. Enough, Boromir says. You have looked too long into that stone. It shows you only what the enemy wishes you to see. Denethor wrenches his arm free. And you would do better, he demands. You, who could not even keep your hand from the ring? Boromir flinches, but does not back down. No, he says. I would not do better. That is why I will not look. He takes a breath. Come with me, he says. Stand on the walls. See with your own eyes. If we are to die, let us die together, not alone in the dark, clutching at shadows. Denethor looks at him, at the man his son has become. He sees failure and pride and stubbornness, but he also sees something else. A humility that was not there before, a willingness to stand beside rather than ahead. He thinks of Faramir, lying pale in the houses of healing. He thinks of the white tree, still standing, though dead. He thinks of the long line of stewards, of their oath to guard the city until the king returns. He thinks of a ship on the river, bearing black sails, and of the banner that might yet fly from its mast. Slowly, as if the weight of years is pressing on his shoulders, Denethor lets his hand fall from the Palantir. Very well, he says, voice low. I will stand. I will not burn. Not yet. Boromir exhales, a shuddering breath he did not know he was holding. Thank you, he says. Denethor's eyes flash. Do not thank me, he snaps. We are not saved. We are merely not yet damned. He draws himself up, the mantle of the steward settling once more around him like armor. Call for my armor, Denethor says. If I am to see this city fall, I will do so in steel, not in a shroud. Boromir nods. As you wish, he says. As they leave the high chamber, Pippin watches them go, feeling as if he has just witnessed something very small and very large at once. A door opening, a flame being stayed. Gandalf, who had been racing up the stairs with Beregond, arrives just in time to see Denethor and Boromir descending together. He stops, staff in hand, eyes narrowing. What mischief is this? Gandalf demands. Denethor, why are you not in the houses of healing? Why do you leave your son alone? Denethor's jaw tightens. My son is not alone, he says, and neither is my city. I have been reminded of that. He glances at Boromir, then back at Gandalf. You have meddled much in the affairs of this house, Denethor says. Perhaps some of your meddling has not been entirely ill. Gandalf blinks, then snorts. High praise indeed, he says dryly. Boromir cannot help a brief, exhausted chuckle. Save your wit for the enemy, Mithrandir, he says. We will need it. They go to the walls together, steward, captain, wizard, and halfling. They stand there as the Witch King swoops down, as the gate shatters, as the first ranks of Mordor pour onto the Pelennor. They see, too, what comes after. The horns of Rohan sound on the morning wind, clear and cold. The Rohirrim crest the ridge, sunlight glinting on spear points, Theoden at their head, snow-white hair streaming. Merry's heart leaps as he hears the answering cries from the walls. Rohan! Rohan has come! Boromir on the wall feels something inside him break loose at the sight. They came, he whispers. They came. Denethor's hands grip the parapet. Perhaps, the steward murmurs, we are not so alone as I thought. The battle on the Pelennor unfolds with all its terrible glory. Theoden's charge, the trampling of orcs under horse hooves, the fall of the king beneath the shadow of the Witch King. Eowyn's stand with Merry's blade at her side. The Lord of the Nazgul falls, his prophecy broken by a woman and a hobbit. Boromir leads a sortie from the ruined gate, rallying the men of the First Circle to join the Rohirrim. He fights beside Prince Imrahil, their banners side by side, cutting a path through the chaos. Then, at the height of the slaughter, when hope and despair are balanced on a knife's edge, the black ships appear on the river. A hush falls, brief and terrible. Denethor on the wall stiffens. "Black sails," he mutters. "The corsairs. It is as the stone showed me." Boromir squints, eyes straining. "Look again," he says softly. The banner that unfurls from the foremost ship is not the skull and serpent of Umbar. It is the white tree on a field of black, surmounted by 7 stars and a crown. "The king," Gandalf breathes. Aragorn leaps from the prow, and Duril in his hand, the army of the dead surging behind him. The corsair crews break and flee. The men of the southern fiefs, emboldened, join the charge. The tide of battle turns. Boromir sees Aragorn on the field, cutting through orcs with a grim, controlled fury. Their eyes meet across the chaos. For a moment, time seems to slow. Aragorn sees Boromir alive, not as a memory, but as a man, bloodied and breathing. Boromir sees Aragorn not as a ranger in worn leathers, but as a king in all but crown. They nod to each other once. Then the battle sweeps them apart. By day's end, the Pelennor is a charnel field, but the city still stands. The hosts of Mordor are broken for a time. The Witch King is gone. Theoden is dead, but Éomer lives, crowned by grief and duty. In the Houses of Healing, Aragorn bends over Faramir, Éowyn and Merry, calling them back from the brink with Kingsfoil and Will. Boromir watches as his younger brother stirs, eyes fluttering open. "Boromir," Faramir whispers, voice weak. "I am here," Boromir says, taking his hand. Faramir smiles faintly. "I dreamed you were dead," he murmurs. Boromir's throat tightens. "So did I," he says, "but it seems we were both wrong." Denethor stands at the foot of the bed, gaunt and silent. He watches Aragorn's hands move, the way the man carries himself, the quiet authority in his voice. "You are the king," Denethor says at last, not a question. Aragorn looks up, meeting the steward's gaze. "I am," he says simply. Denethor's jaw works. "You come in our darkest hour," he says. "With ghosts at your back and a broken sword made whole, you come to claim what my house has guarded for long years." Aragorn inclines his head. "I come to stand beside you," he says. "Not above you. Not yet. There is still war to be fought." Denethor studies him, then looks at his sons. Faramir, pale but alive, his eyes full of quiet strength. Boromir, bruised and bandaged, his face lined with new humility and old pride. He looks back at Aragorn. "You will need all the strength Gondor can muster," Denethor says. "And more. The enemy is not yet beaten. The ring..." He trails off, glancing at Gandalf. "The ring is still abroad," Denethor says. "In the hands of a halfling, if what my sons tell me is true." Gandalf nods. "Frodo and Sam are in Mordor now," the wizard says. "Their road is near its end." Denethor's eyes darken. "And you would send men to their deaths to distract the eye," he says slowly, "to give them a chance." Gandalf meets his gaze without flinching. "Yes," he says. "It is the only way." Denethor looks at Aragorn. "You would lead this last desperate march," he asks, "into the very teeth of the enemy?" Aragorn nods. "I would," he says. "It is my duty, as it is yours, to hold this city in my absence." Denethor's fingers tighten on the head of his staff. "In another time," he says quietly, "I might have refused you. I might have clung to what little strength we have left, hoarding it like a miser, hoping against hope that the storm would pass us by." He looks at Boromir. "But my son has reminded me that there are worse things than death," Denethor continues. "To live on in cowardice and despair, having betrayed all that we were meant to be. That is a fate I will not choose." He turns back to Aragorn. "Take what men you will," Denethor says. "Go to the Black Gate. Draw the eye from my city. If you fall, you will fall as a king should, with a sword in your hand and your face to the enemy." Aragorn bows deeply. "And you," he says, "will stand as a steward should, holding what is given into your care until the end or the new beginning." Denethor's mouth twists. "We shall see which it is," he says. The march to the Black Gate is a smaller host than in the other telling. The losses on the Pelennor have been heavy, yet it is also a host more unified. Boromir rides at Aragorn's side, the banner of the steward and the banner of the king streaming together. Éomer is there, his grief for Theoden held in check by duty. Gandalf, Legolas, Gimli, Pippin all move toward the Darkland with the grim determination of those who have seen too much to turn back. On the walls of Minas Tirith, Denethor and Faramir watch them go. "Do you trust him?" Faramir asks quietly. Denethor's eyes follow the small, distant figure of Aragorn. "I do not know," the steward admits, "but I trust that we have no other road." He looks at his younger son. "And I trust you," Denethor says, "more than I have said, more than I have shown." Faramir swallows, taken aback. "Father," he begins. Denethor lifts a hand. "Later," he says, "if we have a later." At the Black Gate, events unfold much as they must. The mouth of Sauron comes forth, bearing lies wrapped in half-truths. Frodo's gear is shown, but not his body. Despair gnaws at the hearts of the captains, but they stand firm. Boromir grips his sword hilt until his knuckles whiten. "If he has fallen," Boromir says, "then we will avenge him. If he yet lives, we will buy him time." Aragorn steps forward, rejecting the terms, drawing the eyes full wrath upon them. The gate opens. The hosts of Mordor pour out, a black sea against which the small army of the West seems a mere pebble. They form a ring on the slag heap of the Morannon, banners whipping in the foul wind. The Nazgul wheel overhead. The eye blazes in the dark tower. Boromir looks around at his companions. Aragorn, calm and resolute. Gandalf, eyes distant as if seeing a far hill. Éomer, jaw set. Pippin, small and pale but standing straight. "This is where I was meant to die," Boromir thinks, not with bitterness but with a strange, quiet clarity. "Not in the woods of the north, alone with my shame, but here, beside those I have wronged and those I have learned to honor." He raises the horn of Gondor to his lips. It has been mended, the crack bound with silver bands. Its note is not quite as clear as before, but it is strong enough. The horn's call rolls out over the plain, defiant and proud. In the end, Boromir thinks, let it be said that Gondor did not go softly. In the heart of Mount Doom, Frodo stands at the edge of the fire, the ring on its chain in his hand. He has crawled through ash and spiderwebs, through the tunnels of Cirith Ungol, across the blasted plain of Gorgoroth. He has carried the weight of the ring until it has eaten into his very soul. Sam stands behind him, shaking with exhaustion, eyes full of tears. "Go on, Mr. Frodo," Sam whispers. "We are so close." Frodo looks at the fire. He looks at the ring. It glows, red and hungry, the letters blazing on its surface. He hears its voice, not as a whisper now, but as a roar. He sees Boromir's face, Denethor's, Aragorn's, Gandalf's. He sees the Shire, green and peaceful. He sees Minas Tirith, white and proud. He sees them all burning. He cannot. "I will not do this deed," Frodo says, voice hollow. "The ring is mine." He puts it on. In that instant, everything changes. At the Black Gate, the eye flares. The Nazgûl shriek, turning as one, wheeling away from the host of the West. Gandalf's head snaps up. "It has taken him," the wizard breathes. "We are out of time." Boromir feels a cold hand close around his heart. "Frodo," he whispers. On the slopes of Orodruin, Gollum, driven by hunger and obsession, leaps upon the invisible ring-bearer. They struggle, teeth and nails and desperation. Gollum bites, hard, and Frodo screams as his finger is torn away. The ring flies, spinning, catching the light of the fire. Gollum, triumphant, clutches it to his chest and dances, heedless on the edge. He slips. He falls. The ring falls with him into the fire. The world shudders. At the Black Gate, the ground bucks. Towers sway. The eye flares one last time, then implodes, a scream without sound. The Nazgûl, turning back toward Frodo, are caught in the blast of unmaking. They crumple, their mounts folding like broken things, their forms unraveling into nothing. The hosts of Mordor falter, then break, their will unmoored from the dark will that bound them. Boromir staggers, dropping to one knee, sword digging into the ash. "It is over," he gasps. "By all the Valar, it is over." Aragorn, breathing hard, looks at the Tower of Barad-dûr as it cracks, then collapses, a mountain of stone falling in on itself. He thinks of Frodo and Sam somewhere in that hellish land. "Not yet," Aragorn says. "Not until we know they are safe." They are not really. They will be saved from the mountain's fire by the eagles, borne back to the land of the living. They will wake in a soft bed, with Gandalf smiling at them. But some part of them will never leave that mountain. In Minas Tirith, the bells ring and the people weep. Denethor stands in the court of the fountain, looking up at the White Tree. For a moment, he imagines that he sees a single tiny bud on one of the dead branches. He blinks, and it is gone. Or perhaps it was never there. The days that follow are a strange mixture of triumph and unease. The king is crowned. Aragorn walks up the long stair in a mantle of green and silver, the crown of Gondor in Faramir's hands. The people cheer, petals falling like snow. The White Tree, replanted from a sapling found on the slopes of Mindolluin, stands small but living. Denethor kneels before Aragorn, surrendering the white rod of the steward. "Receive now the stewardship of this city," Denethor says, voice steady. "Until your line fails, or the world ends." Aragorn takes the rod, then offers it back. "Keep it," he says. "You and your house. I will have need of your counsel, and of your sons." Denethor hesitates, then closes his fingers around the rod once more. "So be it," he says. Boromir stands behind his father, resplendent in new forged armor, the horn of Gondor at his side. Faramir stands on Aragorn's other hand, clad as Prince of Ithilien. The three of them, king, steward, captain, form a new axis around which Gondor will turn. Yet even in this moment of joy, shadows linger. Boromir, in the weeks that follow, finds himself waking in the night, heart pounding, hand reaching for a sword that is not there. He dreams of the ring, of the feel of it in his palm, of the way his mind had bent toward it like a plant toward the sun. He dreams, too, of Frodo on the slopes of Orodruin, invisible and struggling, of the scream as Gollum bit, of the fire that took them all. He wonders what wound Frodo carries now, beyond the missing finger. He wonders if the Hobbit will ever truly heal. When the ring-bearers come to Minas Tirith to be honored, Boromir stands in the hall with the others, watching Frodo walk forward, small and slight, his hand bandaged. Their eyes meet. Boromir steps forward, dropping to one knee before the Hobbit. "Frodo," he says, voice thick, "I wronged you. I sought to take from you the burden that was yours, not out of love, but out of pride. I would ask your forgiveness, though I do not deserve it." Frodo looks at him, at the man who had once loomed over him in the woods, eyes wild, hands grasping. He sees now a different man, lined, humbled, bearing his own scars. "You were not the only one tempted," Frodo says quietly, "nor the last. I forgive you, Boromir, not because you ask, but because I must, if I am to live with what I have done." Boromir bows his head, tears pricking his eyes. "Thank you," he whispers. Later, on the walls, he stands with Aragorn, looking out over the Pelennor, where the grass is slowly growing back over the scars of war. "What will you do now?" Aragorn asks. Boromir considers. "I will rebuild," he says. "The walls, the armies, the trust of the people. I will ride to the borders and make sure that no shadow creeps back while we look elsewhere. I will be what I was always meant to be, Gondor's sword arm." He looks at Aragorn. "And you?" Boromir asks. Aragorn smiles faintly. "I will do as kings must," he says. "Listen, Judge. Build, heal. Try not to make too many mistakes." He glances at Boromir. "I will need you," Aragorn says. "Not as a subject only, but as a friend who will tell me when I am wrong." Boromir snorts. "I am good at that," he says. "Ask my father." Aragorn's smile deepens. "I have," he says. He agrees. They stand in companionable silence for a while. Below, in the streets, children play at war, swinging wooden swords, shouting the names of their heroes. "Boromir. I am Boromir, captain of the White Tower." "No, I am. You be an orc." Boromir winces. "I do not deserve that," he says. Aragorn glances at him. "Perhaps not," he says. "But you have it. What you do with it now is what will matter." Years will pass. Gondor will heal slowly. The scars of war will fade, though never entirely vanish. The southern fiefs will prosper under Imrahil's steady hand. Ithilien will bloom under Faramir and Éowyn, green and fair. Denethor will grow older, his sharpness blunted somewhat by the knowledge that he did not, in the end, betray his city to despair. He will still be proud, still difficult, but there will be moments, small, rare, when he laughs with his sons, when he watches his grandchildren play, when he sits in the court of the fountain and simply breathes. Boromir will ride often, patrolling the borders, leading campaigns against the remnants of the enemy, scattered orc bands in the Ifilduath, restless Easterlings testing the strength of Gondor's new king. He will be wounded again more than once. He will bury friends. He will stand at Aragorn's side in councils and in battle. He will never entirely escape the shadow of the ring. There will be moments in quiet chambers when he will find his hand straying to his breast, as if feeling for a weight that is no longer there. There will be times when he will wake with the taste of ash in his mouth, hearing a voice whisper of power, of easy victories. He will remember then Frodo's face, and Sam's, and the fire of Mount Doom. He will remember the look in Denethor's eyes when he stepped away from the Palantir, when he chose to stand on the walls instead of burn. He will remember Aragorn's hand on his shoulder, steady and unyielding. He will choose, again and again, to turn away from the whisper. In the Shire, years later, Frodo will sit by the window of Bag End, the red book open on his lap, the sound of children playing in the party field drifting in. His hand will ache, the missing finger a phantom pain. His heart will ache too, in ways that are harder to name. He will dip his pen and write of Boromir, of his fall and his rise, of the way he stood on the walls of Minas Tirith, horns sounding, not in death, but in defiance. He will pause, staring at the page. What if he had died on Amon Hen? Frodo will think. Would things have been simpler? Would Denethor have fallen into fire? Would Aragorn have found it easier to claim his throne without a proud steward's son at his side? He will shake his head, smiling faintly. Nothing is ever simple, Frodo will write. Not in war, nor in the hearts of men. He will set down his pen and look out at the green hills, at Sam laughing with his children. He will think of another shore, far away, where perhaps the weight will finally lift. In Minas Tirith, on a quiet evening many years after the war, Boromir will walk alone in the court of the fountain. The white tree, now tall and full, rustles softly in the breeze. The stars are bright above the city. He will pause at the base of the tree, hand resting on the cool stone of the fountain's rim. From somewhere in the lower circles, faint and distant, the sound of a horn will drift up. Not the great horn of Gondor, but a smaller one, a child's toy blown in play. Boromir will close his eyes. He will remember snow whirling like ash around Amon Hen, the crack of bowstrings, the weight of shame and the taste of blood. He will remember a hand pulling him up instead of laying him down. He will remember standing before his father, saying no. He will remember the black gate, the horn's call, the moment when the world shuddered and did not end. He will open his eyes and look up at the white tree, its leaves shimmering like stars. For a moment, he will feel very small and very, very tired. This was not the ending I expected, Boromir will think, but it is the one I have. A leaf will fall, spinning slowly, catching the starlight as it drifts down. It will land on the surface of the fountain's water without a sound, sending out ripples that fade into stillness.